Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to get comfortable and listen in on candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. Tune in as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learned along the way. These conversations aim to inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination. Reclaim your power, strength, and vulnerability. Stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life you dream to live. Hello, everyone. Wonderful listeners of ours. It's Annie Gibbins here, your host of Women's Biz Podcast. And today I'm thrilled to introduce to you Kim DeYoung. She is a seasoned choice coach, entrepreneur, speaker, and a brilliant author behind a book called The Book of Choice. So yes, we are going to be talking choices today. Kim has a wealth of experience, 2 decades of experience at the forefront of coaching creative and visionary entrepreneurs. And it's mainly around guiding them to make choices that turn their ideas into reality. What a great topic we are going to talk about today. All about helping you find your true happiness, because we're going to be making sure that we make choices that are going to lead to an empowered future. Oh, I'm all about that. Welcome to the program, Kim.
Thank you. So glad to be here with you.
I'm thrilled to have you here today because I love the topic of choices. And so that's what you have sort of created your whole coaching platform around. So can you share with our listeners a little bit about, well, what do you do? Why is it so important to talk about choices?
Yeah. It's funny. I have been doing this work about a decade now, and I often feel like I was given the best gift, like I divinely downloaded an idea that caused me to begin doing a lot of stuff around choices that we can talk more about. But essentially, I just believe that there is great power in being thoughtful and intentional about our choices, and that when we do that, everything changes. So we make many, many, many choices every day, from the mundane of what we're eating to the really important ones. And to bring that thoughtfulness to the choices we make, to give great thought to why does the choice matter? What could get in my way? What's possible? What actions will I take? Is really important. And imagine us as adults now teaching that to our kids and the next generation. And that's something that's new language to them. So it's so powerful. It's one thing for us to know it. It's also another thing to give that information and insight to younger people as well.
I think it's such great information to be sharing with our young people, because so much of our life, and I've heard myself say it, I've heard so many people that I've coached say, I didn't have a choice, right? And so that's a whole interesting topic of itself. It's like, well, you always have a choice, whereas it feels like there is no choice. You're in a situation that's moving too rapidly, dictated by other people. It can feel like that. And so I think that's a fascinating place to be, that, let's start early and be encouraging our young people that you do always have a choice. I think you mentioned there before, it's like slow down and actually be intentional with your actions, right?
Yes. And you brought up such an interesting point. It's like, so often you're right. People think they don't have a choice, but we always have a choice. Even if we choose to not do something, that is a choice. And again, it's just power. I mean, it's around us all the time. It's around us no matter our age, no matter our demographic, everybody. None of us are really immune from making a choice. We all have to do it. And the more thoughtful that we can be in the choices we make, the better. That's really the key thing that I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, even no choice is a choice, right? Often
Mhm.
people think to choose is to do something. It's also to not do something. It is always a choice. And
Yeah,
so you talk about the importance of living an examined life. And I love that.
yeah,
I'd really love to explore that. Can you elaborate a little bit? Well, what does that
yeah.
mean? Why
Yeah,
is it?
I mean, I had a circumstance when I shared the introduction of my book, which talks about this concept of the examined life. I shared it with a woman who was 80 years old, and she called me to say, "Kim, is it too late?" I said, "Is it too late for what?" She said, "I've never been thoughtful about my choices at this
Mm,
point. I have never lived an examined life. Is it too late to start?" And I said, it is never too late to start. Like at any moment, you could choose to bring greater thoughtfulness to your choice. And it was interesting. I then had a further conversation with her, and just generationally, in her specific circumstances, her husband made all the decisions. She didn't. She was not of that generation. She was not brought up that way. And it's like a whole new thing for her to try on that concept. And what does it mean to be, I guess my definition of living an examined life is one where you're aware of what you're doing. Like the opposite, if you think of the opposite of the examined life, that would mean you're not thoughtful about your choices and your life is kind of happening to you. And
mm.
you may be a victim of circumstance versus the flip side is controlling it and bringing that intentionality to what you do so your life is not happening to you, that you are making your life happen the way you want it to happen.
Yeah. I think so many people will be sitting there nodding, going, yes, yes, yes. I
Yes.
often feel like life is happening to me rather than me intentionally choosing, who I want to be, how I want to live my life, who I allow in and out of my space. So many important aspects, and I love that generational difference too. Because if I think back of my grandmothers or my mother, they often had sayings like, "Well, my opinion doesn't matter," or "I'm not allowed to say what I really think." And things like that, which preface that sort of that generation that it's kind of like, well, we are, if we're coupled up, and the man is leading, we are making choices based on that. So it can feel like very much life is happening to you. For those people like that lady that you spoke to, it must be such a confronting, exciting, even if it's getting done at age 80, but scary for someone who's never really thought, gee, I actually have this much control and this is how many opportunities I have every day to be intentional with my actions.
Exciting and amazingly scary.
Yeah.
Somebody who's never done it before and doesn't even necessarily have the skill set, the confidence to do it. I
Mm,
mean, so much about making an intentional choice is confidence, is that
mm,
belief that you have it, because if you think about, many of us, there are many different decision making styles, and some people are scared to make a choice. Some people are avoidant to make a choice. And if
mm.
you're kind of in that space, you may be bringing all this fear and even and just not having the capability of making the choice. There's so much of that as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. It could actually be quite traumatic if you just suddenly launched into that, that whole process. It would be totally overwhelming because these are skills that we develop over a lifetime and that
Yes.
we get more confident and empowered in. So I'd love to talk about your book then. The book's called The Book of Choice. And I understand it was a culmination of your experiences. So what led you to write the book?
So, about 10 years ago, I was being interviewed for something unrelated to the book. And the way that I answered one of the interviewer's questions was, what happens as we make a choice and take action? How does our life unfold?
Mm,
And as I reflected on that after the interview was over, I was thinking, I'm like, what does happen when we make a choice and take action? How does our life unfold? And I
mm,
went back to a particular choice I'd made, maybe 2 years prior. And I'm a visual person, so I used a mind mapping software to look at the details of it. I thought, okay, I made this choice. From this choice, I met this person, had this opportunity, this experience, and I captured it in a mind map. And I had basically captured a 2-year window of time. And when I shared it with my first friend, she was blown away. She's like, "Can you do that for me?" Because really what I was documenting on a piece of paper was all of this people, opportunities, things, et cetera, had come into my life because of one choice. So when I looked back over time, it was this amazing feeling of gratitude. But as well, when I stood in the future space and looked into the future and thought, what choice could I make today and what becomes possible? That was when I realized the power of this. You know, each of us is in a moment every day to wake up and say, I choose to do something. And from that something, things will come. That is the truth. And so from that experience, this friend actually not only asked if I would create a map for her of a choice she had made, but she said, "Kim, can I ask you, because I'm very get it done oriented, can you not need to get it done? Can you just enjoy the mapping and see where it goes?" And it was a beautiful request. And it sent me on a year journey of exploring the choices of 29 others. And so in that experience of having these beautiful deep dive conversations with people of choices they'd made, choices they wanted to make, I was led into this incredible world of information. I mean, people shared and shared and shared. And at the end of the year, as I was processing all that I had learned and digested, I thought, I am sitting on something very powerful. And share this information in a way that is helpful to others. And that was really how the book began. And one of the interesting things is that this mapping process that I've referred to, I wasn't teaching anybody how to do it. I was just, it was my process of like, if you and I were to have a conversation of let's explore a choice you made, this is what I would do on your behalf. And it was a coach of mine who said to me, "Kim, I think you might want to teach choice mapping in your book." And I thought, I didn't imagine anybody would be interested. So, but I heard her words and I had to kind of observe, how is it that I do what I do so that I could teach it to others and be able to describe my process. So I have really come up with a vocabulary and a new way that anybody can look at their choice. It's choice mapping is it's a self-discovery tool. It's a visual, creative process that anybody can use at any time to look at the details of a choice, to bring that greater intentionality to live that examined life. And, you know, the book has beautiful stories because I've interviewed so many people. So it's not only pieces of my journey, it's other people's journey. And my hope is that as people read it and hear other people's stories, they can put themselves in their shoes and imagine, like, how might they have handled it? And, you know, so there's like a lot of learning and opportunity for them in the book.
I do love books that have got stories from a variety of people, because it really just allows you to connect into so many different sort of spaces and different perspectives. Yes. Also how we process things. So congratulations to you. I also love this whole process, and you know, being a business podcast as well, it relates very much to funnel thinking and actually just sort of unpacking all of the potentials. You know, for example, you know, you're actually, you know, going ahead of time and imagining, if I do this and then this and then this and then this, then, you know, it allows you to layer and then have that insight, makes you a lot more aware of those choices and where they will lead, you know. And I've sort of done that in a whole variety. I'm just listening to you thinking, you know, well, when I left my last CEO role, you know, other people thought I would go in a different direction, whereas I actually went, no, I'm making a choice to work in my own business, because it then gives me flexibility. It then gives me time with my granddaughters. It gives me time to travel with my husband, you know, da, 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 da. And I actually had to go, if I make this decision, what will be the pros and there's cons, you know, salary, safety, security, position, title, but allows you to actually go, oh, okay, if I did it this way, and then, well, what's going to be the consequence of that? And then where will that lead me? Where will that lead me? or I can choose to do this other choice. So when you actually start mapping them out, I love that process. And people will go, oh my gosh, I don't think of that. But when you do it, which we do in business all the time, we'll go and say, okay, we'll get a person to sort of approach us in a certain way, and then they'll go through a different route. But if they choose not to respond, we'll then follow them up with a different flow, so it's kind of that flow thinking. I think it's such a fascinating topic. So in your years of coaching, you've helped so many individuals make meaningful choices. What sort of examples can you share with our listeners today on different choices that people have made that have really positively impacted their lives?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. One of the things that as I was, speaking with so many people, I realized that the types of choices that we make kind of fall into, at a broad level, 3 categories. We're either making personal choices, professional choices, or relationship choices. So examples of a personal choice might be, I choose to work with a new coach, or I choose to embark on a self-care regimen. I choose to reconnect with somebody from my past. That could be a personal choice. Professional choice could be, I choose to leave a job, start a job. I choose to go out on my own. I choose to set better boundaries with my boss. I mean, they could be very broad or quite small. A relationship choice, again, big level. I choose to start a relationship, end a relationship, or I choose to let go of this toxic relationship, that kind of thing, all levels of it. And I've gone the gamut of all of them with many people. And I've done the combination of both looking back at choices that people have made, that there may be both healing, maybe there's shame and forgiveness with regard to past choices that people want to embark upon, or they may have made a past choice that they feel really proud of. And how do they bring some of the qualities of why they feel proud into a current choice that they're making? So there's so much to learn from looking back. And I think when people have the courage to look back or look forward with true vulnerability and honesty, it's an opportunity for them to be their own coach. I mean, that really is the truth. I mean, if we as coaches believe that our clients have the answers, that we all have our own internal answers, it's just a matter of digging and getting a little deeper. And this process allows you to have your own internal Q&A with yourself. So once you've defined what the choice is, I choose to leave a relationship, and you begin having this question and answer of, why does it matter? What am I scared of? Like all of the components, and you dig and you go as deep as you can and or want to go. That's where the jewels are for you, and really the wisdom, so that, you're making a choice that just you feel confident about, and you feel good that you have made the best choice for you.
You mentioned the word vulnerability, and that is so true. You do have to be very vulnerable to be able to go on this journey, because it requires you really reflecting on big decisions that you have made, and ones that you might feel embarrassed about, guilty about. It's confronting, but to go through that hard work and that uncomfortable space, you're going to come out the other side with so much more self-awareness, so much more intent to make better choices moving forward. When you've worked with so many different people, have you felt or observed some commonalities with the process, that once people go on this process, there is a common thread that happens? Or have you actually noticed that you've learned some amazing things about people that you wouldn't have expected?
Well, 100% to the second part of the question. I always learn something unexpected. And I always embark on each conversation totally unattached to what will come out of the exploration, yet knowing there's magic that will come. I mean, every time, for more than 100 mapping experiences that I've had, as each person opens themselves up to kind of go deep, they always learn something about themselves that they didn't expect to learn, just based on following the questions and answers and that. To the first part of your question, which was, are there common themes? I think there are. I think, people are naturally, if you take the first part of the process, which is why does the choice matter? And let's imagine you state A, B, and C of why the choice matters. There is no doubt there are fears that are going to get in your way. What could block you from making that choice? And it could be, that you are scared of making the wrong choice. You are scared of disappointing someone. Maybe you have a history of having made bad choices and you just don't have that confidence in yourself. You may think, who am I to make that choice? All of a sudden, a lot of limiting beliefs begin to show up. I mean, we're all quite human. And I have talked with, seasoned CEOs to 20-year-old kids. There's a version of all of that in all of us. The truth is, we're none of us are immune to having fears, and none of us are immune to having limiting beliefs. If we've been at this longer, we may be quicker to see it, quicker to resolve it, but we all have a version of it. And, it's actually kind of a beautiful thing from a humanity perspective to realize, like, we're all kind of connected in that way. Like, we're all essentially having versions of the same struggles. We want to make choices that matter. We seek to do good things in the world, to do things that matter to us, that are going to feel purpose-filled, et cetera. Many of us do. And yet we're human, and there's things that hold us back from doing that. And how do we push through? How do we deal with our demons and our stuff? I mean, it's we all have that.
Exactly. My experience is exactly true that, we all have those moments. It doesn't matter how confident people look in some spaces, there'll be areas that they're not confident. An example would be, I've been a CEO for a decade and I've had an amazing career journey. So many aspects you go, Annie looks so comfortable. But I remember when I made a choice to go and do Everest Base Camp and the high passes. So suddenly I'm going to be doing a 19-day, altitude snow trek with my husband, and so we then had to make the choice to book into it, but then also make the choice of training. Suddenly what's the fitness required to be able to do something, and then it was the choice of what kind of training, and then that choice every day of, am I going to show up when no one else is watching? Am I going to actually do the hard yards? And then all of those, suddenly the mindset things of my attitude to sport in the past and my commitment to it. And, it's so easy when you start falling off the wagon a little bit, which we will in whatever scenario we're talking about. There'll be things that will activate, and then there'll be voices in your head of people going, oh, she's never going to be able to do that. Or, things like that. It's amazing what unravels when you just decide, make a choice. And it was a choice some days to not do the training, and then be able to imagine the consequences. And so I love this process, this discussion, because I'm imagining it in so many different sort of spheres that in some ways you go, yeah, that was a wrong choice. I'd make a better choice now that I think about it. And other times, whenever you're pushing yourself and you're growing, you're going to be in places that you haven't experienced before, or that might trigger things that you're not expecting, and they can be a surprise to yourself.
Yes. And to that point, I don't think anybody goes into a choice to make a bad choice. Yet
No.
There will be times we don't have the information, the confidence, the wisdom, whatever it is. And, if you were to look back at that choice, years back, and you're like, God, if I had my wiser self, I might have done it differently, as we all could probably say about choices that we've made. And
Yes.
how to move forward. I had a mentor years ago who was very impactful for me. What I remember, I was in my early 20s and I had a professional decision to make that I did not feel capable of making. And I said, I'm not old enough. He said, you're right. You don't have 10 years on you. He said, but you have to make this decision with who you are today. And then you will use that information for tomorrow's decision. And it was honestly the best advice I've ever received. It supported me to make decisions much more quickly, because I realized if I became the bottleneck in any one decision, I was the one stopping my life. And I could just make the best choice I could in the moment. And as the mother of 3 young 20s, I tell them that all the time. I'll pro and con everything that they're going through with them, but they've got to make the choice, and they've got to live through the ramifications, the consequences, to learn from it.
That's life.
And that's life. There it is.
We'll all look back on different relationships, different career choices, so many, like every aspect of your life, and go, wow, with this, hindsight's a fun thing. But I agree with you. No one goes in, makes a choice thinking that this is going to be a bad choice. We have to, there's always risk. There's always learning about ourselves. Some things could have felt like a good idea at the time, and we just didn't realize all what it actually entailed. There can be some variables. There's many people who've made choices, pre-COVID or during COVID with decisions, even in real estate, cost of living prices now coming back to bite people. There's always so many things that we just have to learn and grow through, which will then affect us. So is the main thing that you have found is people need to be just slow it down and become more thoughtful and strategic in their intentionality, or is there another main ingredient there?
That's a very interesting question. I don't know that I've thought about it from the perspective of they must slow down, although that's never a bad thing. I believe that with the thoughtfulness of, for example, I can speak to an issue my son was going through. So starting a new job, moving to a new city, navigating a relationship that was at a distance. It was like, will I choose to take this job in this new city? And will I choose to embark on a relationship, long distance, like two big things in his life, new job, new relationship. And the choice to do both and the consciousness. So it wasn't, yes, it probably was a slowing down. And because he'd been aware of this process with me for years, and, I was coaching him a bit on the side, it was that realization of, you have these big choices to make. Like, how do you bring your thoughtfulness to it? Are you prepared to be making two big choices at once? Like, does it serve you to be both starting a new job in a new city and dealing with a long distance relationship, a brand new long distance? And in the talking through it, he ended up deciding, yes, he wanted it all. Okay. That was very conscious. I mean, good for you. Yeah. Like, he thought about it. He decided it. He and his girlfriend had a very open conversation. I mean, what more gorgeous thing could you do than that? Like, will it work? Who knows? But they went into it eyes wide open, very thoughtful of the challenges that they might navigate. I mean, that is a beautiful thing to do in all cases. Yeah. So that was, that is what I hope for everybody in the choices they make, is to just think through it so that when you step forth, you're like, yeah, I'm doing this, whatever it is.
So what are the main common obstacles that people will find in the process? You've got a very detailed process that you've outlined and is in your book. Are there certain sort of parts of the process, if you like, that people struggle with? And is there a main common obstacle?
You know what? This is such a great question as well. And I just taught a class on this, and I really experienced it firsthand. One of the components of looking at a choice is to look at what becomes possible for you from that choice. And I find across the board, none of us are as great at looking at what is possible for us on our own as we are when a friend steps in. So, you could sit there and say, I'm choosing to stop working corporately, and I want to work on my own. And what are the things that are possible? And you might come up with some great things. And then you sit down with your really smart, interesting friend who loves you to death. And she comes up with a handful of other things that you didn't see for yourself because others can see more for us. And I just experienced this. I was just leading my first class where I took the content of the book a bit deeper. So I had a group of students, and they really saw that firsthand. I had them do an exercise where they took their choice and thought through what was possible. And then I had them do it in a partner experience. And they're like, oh my God, my partner saw this and that and huge, big, brilliant things. And that every person that happens to, every single person, that is a common thing. So it's an interesting experience to invite somebody else into the process with you, because I often think, like, whenever you're making a choice, they're both the fears that could hold you back and the possibility that pulls you forward. And if the possibility is big enough and exciting enough, and you've used the support of a friend or loved one to help you think bigger, it's likely going to pull you through the fears. into the future, into this thing you want. I mean, and that's big.
That is huge. That is huge. The power in being in a supportive environment, the power of having a friend, having a coach, having a mentor, something that actually supports you and gives you that boldness, braveness, sort of, nesting, if you like, but can also give you, in love, the kick that you need to actually push you through. And often that's what it's like. It's like this gentle push, but I'm here for you. I've got your back. You're not going to fall. Which actually is the best blessing, because I think so many people by themselves, it's that time of, no, I'll just hide under the doona. No, I'll just give it a miss time. I'll just wait till I feel like it. We've all got that. There's nothing judgmental in that. Like, that's just human nature. Whereas when you've got that person going, no, you want this, I want it for you too, go get it. It is so powerful. So powerful. That's interesting. So I've also heard you talk about the value of walking away from the zone of excellence work to focus on your zone of genius work. What does that mean?
So those are two terms that I learned years ago when I read the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And zone of excellence work is work that you're really good at, you're well valued and well compensated, but you're not necessarily jumping out of bed. It's not your most purpose-filled work. Versus zone of genius work is like work that you would do for free. Like, you just love it so much. It makes you so happy. It's purpose-filled. And I made a very big choice about a year and a half ago to step away from zone of excellence work that I had been doing for years, that I was very good at, had beautiful clients. I loved what they did. I cared. It wasn't awful work by any means. Yet I was beginning to notice that I didn't have this deeper sense of purpose, and I wanted that. And so that was when I made the decision, this is a handful of months before my book was published, that I was only going to focus on everything choice related. And I am in that space now, 18 months-ish, and it's a different world, to like every client, every opportunity, everything I do, I'm just happy. Like, I am much happier because the work flows out of me. It's actually not work. It's like beautiful conversations. It's so much fun because it is zone of genius. And so I hope for everybody, and what does it mean to step into your own zone of genius? And what is that work that is just, you would do it even if you were not paid for it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm the first to say I feel like that with Women's Biz Global, because I just absolutely love it going. And I say to my husband all the time, I can't believe I get paid for this. It's just a joy. Saying that, it can be a hard journey for people to then monetize that, to be in that space. Yeah. This pure joy. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I do this for free. But you can't do it for free because obviously everything has to be business. And that can be a big block, and that can be a huge challenge for people going, well, my area of excellence basically does pay the bills and does get me through. So it's a big, bold, brave move to actually focus on your zone of genius and to really start embracing that. But at the same time, being very intentional with those actions and those choices to then monetize that in a way that better than what you did before.
Yes. I mean, and your words are so important. It's just because it's zone of genius while you would do it for free, does not mean you do it for free. And here's the thing, people don't value what they receive for free. So it is very important to step forth. And fortunately, the work that I had done in the zone of excellence was about building businesses, launching products and services. So now it's really applying everything I would do for clients to myself. And I know it, but there's there's a matter of doing it. There are things to do to monetize a business, offers to be made, lists to be built. I mean, products to be created, all of it. And, there's no shortcut.
Yeah. So did you find that this is what actually, this change of thinking for you actually sped up the process, such as writing the book? I know your book took 10 years or something to write. That's a common journey for many people. I'm also a publisher, and I'm watching other people have these journeys going, it just never gets done. But suddenly a shift like that to actually change what you were doing and move into this new space, can that that can sometimes be that push to then suddenly everything falls into place. Did that happen to you?
100%. I mean, part of why I walked away from the Zone of Excellence work was I needed to commit more time to getting my book out. Like for many of the years, I enjoyed the process. I wasn't rushing it. I didn't need to be on a timeline. I knew that there was learning in the journey. But as I hit last year, I was like, okay, I'm done already. Like the book needs to be out. I need to move on with this part of my life. And I couldn't fully get it done properly with the other work. And I just made the decision, I'll do whatever it takes to get that book out there. I self-published. I learned everything I needed to learn, and I did everything I needed to do. And I put, kind of my get it done energy into that. And, all the while building a platform. I knew that if I were to go with a publisher, I had to build a platform for the publisher. So I might as well build it by myself, and, began to just methodically do all the things that one needs to do. And I continue doing it. And there's a never ending to-do list of things, but they're born out of love now. Like now there's a different quality, because every idea that I have, every service product that I offer, every partnership that I'm in, there's something rooted in it that's really, it's just based in something that feels really good. So that's an important piece for me.
Oh, fantastic. And just to finish up, I'm just loving this conversation today, and I'm hoping our listeners are like, yes, this is just so fascinating. I want you to start thinking about the choices that you made today, yesterday, over the past month, and really start tapping into this whole concept. We would love, of course, your questions in the chat wherever you're watching, whether it's if you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn Live, or you also might be listening in via our platforms. Definitely shoot us a question, a comment, any of your feedback. Definitely reach out if something is resonating with you here. I'd love you to close just by sharing, well, what have you learned most about yourself, Kim?
I have learned that when something matters to me deeply, that I put all my energy into it and I make it happen, and that nothing will stop me. And that has been a very powerful lesson.
The secret to be unstoppable is to actually become 100% focused in your belief of yourself, right? To start backing yourself, to just launch in intentionally, and be committed. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for being such a fantastic guest on our show today. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I know our listeners will have as well.
Thank you so much. I loved it.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, pop on over to womensbizglobal.com, where you can find out how our coaching, media and publishing opportunities are helping women just like you to become and be seen as the trusted authorities in their niche. Inquire today and start reining in the abundance you desire.